Every character in Overwatch has the ability to melee. Melee by default is bound to V, and everyone but Reinhardt can use it since Reinhardt's primary fire is basically the melee ability. A regular standard melee attack will deal 30 damage and has a cooldown of 1 second before it can be used again. Melee attacks also go through shields, which makes it good at finishing off characters attempting to hide behind one. As of right now, there are 4 characters that have melee abilities which have special properties. These 4 characters are Genji, Reinhardt, Torbjorn, and Winston. Genji's special melee ability comes from his ultimate, which allows him to melee with increased damage and reach. Reinhardt's special melee ability is his primary fire. He deals 75 damage and has increased reach compared to the regular melee attack. Torbjorn's hammer is used to build and repair his turret, but can also be used as a way to deal damage to enemies, dealing 55 damage. When ulting, Torbjorn can swing his hammer faster than normal and has a higher fire rate compared to his regular melee attack. So now knowing how every melee in the game works, now we can answer the question of when should you use melee? Well, seeing that melee abilities are a way of dealing 30 damage quickly and generally have a wider range compared to most primary fire abilities, it's safe to say that it should be used as a way to finish people off. You won't be using this for people mid to long range due to the limited range it has, but instead will be using it for people that are close range. It's much easier to hit your targets this way. Oftentimes you'll see characters like Genji, Tracer, or Roadhog melee after their initial burst to add a bit of damage in order to execute their targets. So just before we end off this video, let's jump into 2 real game examples of using melee properly. So the enemy manages to get onto point A on Hanamura, and I'm in a situation where I'm trying to kill Reaper. He ends up on low HP and decides to retreat. I see him wrap around the corner and decide to go and finish him off. As I turn the corner, he appears close range, and since I know he's on low HP, I decide to just melee him since it's a more reliable option compared to using my primary fire. In case you've forgotten, the reason why this is more reliable is because of the wider range that melee has compared to Zenyatta's primary fire. The second example comes from a game on Nepal. I have multiple allies that are fairly low on HP, and Genji just uses ultimate, so I use mine in order to counter his. As the fight unfolds, Genji decides to go for me, and after headshotting him, he's fairly low on HP. I decide to go for a melee on him to finish him off since it's a more reliable way of hitting him, and by doing so, even if I were to accidentally melee early, he wouldn't be able to reflect the damage back at me since Genji's deflect is unable to reflect melee attacks. Now even though I missed, I would still say this is the right decision due to me being close range of him and the 2 things that I mentioned earlier, that being that he wouldn't be able to reflect damage back at me and it being more reliable. So now knowing this, you can apply this to your games. Instead of using primary fire to finish off low HP targets that are close range, use your melee instead. I hope you guys learned something. Perhaps this may have been just a reminder for you that, melee exists, because that's something I forgot when I started playing. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next one.
Hello.